Grateful you could stay on. Let's now settle for the details. Information reaching Joy Business indicates that the government has reached a deal with banks and insurance firms under the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. Now, there are also some changes made to invitation for exchange for individual bondholders as well as pensioners. My colleague Joy Biafe has more.
Joy Business understands that the said deal was closed on Saturday at a crunch meeting between government and some of these stakeholders. However, we're yet to get the fine details of the said deal that has been reached between government, the insurers and the banks. When we got in touch with some of the banks, it was not clear about whether they fully accepted the terms proposed by government. This because we're told that, quote, we are working to get a good deal. Government has also proposed to pay 5% interest as coupon payment to individuals for this year, reversing the earlier 0%. Joy Business is learning that persons above 60 years and pensioners are going to be exempted with improved terms. It is not clear for now whether members of these associations and groupings really accept the deal, as their leaders are expected to start the necessary briefings this week. What would be the final response to government? Well, time would tell us in the agreements reached with these stakeholders and the impact on Ghana getting the board approval for its program with the IMF, possibly in March this year, so that disbursement coming in from April 2023.
So that's a story there, and it has to do with government reaching a deal with banks and insurance firms under the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. And there's been some changes made to invitation for exchange of individual bondholders as well as pensioners. And that was George Biafe bringing us that report. We will be speaking to an economist pretty soon on this developing story, and we will engage him on that. As and when we do have him, we shall bring him on to speak to us. But let's move on to some other stories we have for you. Welcome back. This is the Marketplace with me, Pius Kojobaka, and we will go back to our earlier story where banks have reached an agreement with the Bank of Ghana on by way of improving or shoring up our 0% interest on coupon payment. Dr. Amwa is back on the telephone lines for more. Grateful, Doc, you could join us on the Marketplace. Earlier I was asking, what will this mean to the banking industry and insurance sector as well?
Yeah, thank you very much. What it means is that we have some level of respite in the sense that expected revenue, which in the initial debt exchange program was going to be zero, on these government bonds have now been agreed to be 5% this year. So if you look at the revenue generation side of the bank, what it means is that the banks are now going to get 5% on their investment this year, which will then be added to interest income from loans and trickle down into their performance. So it is better than the initial zero coupon that the government presents. And again, we must add that the banks themselves have assessed the situation, they have gone through the discussion, and if the banks are signing an agreement to this, then it means that this particular 5% will go a long way to help the bank's operation in the 23.
I was coming to that, looking at the impact this 5% would have on banks. Do you think it has the potential to, cushion banks?
Absolutely. The 5% is better than not in the first place. So, and if you look at the bank income structure, realize that about 45 to 50% of banks in Ghana rake in income from instruments or investment. And in many instances, it is their dealings with government. So clearly, if this year government has changed their position and is giving 5%, it is not the best. But then, given the current circumstances where all the participants are being called to share in the burden, then at least 5% to cushion the bank is enough for this year. What we need to be asking, of course, we cannot answer this question is, what happens to the principal payment? Does it mean that there will be no principal payment this year? Because the principal payment is also another conduit for the banks to get a portion of whatever they invested in some of these bonds, so they can also reposition them into other investments. So if it is only the coupon? What about the principal? That's another question that we need to ask. But the 5% is better than nothing at all for both the banks and the insurance company.
Great. So what can the parties do to quickly complete the debt exchange program in order to move to the next stage of securing an IMF program?
You see, it is sad that for just about 20 years, from 2003 to 2023, just within 20 years that we started borrowing from this international market, we are bankrupt. What has happened to all our resources that God has endowed the country with? That we are at a point where it's as if there's a gun on us, and within February ending, March ending, we must secure a deal. Why are we so much in a hurry and we have no breathing space to do this? Clearly, we need to reassess ourselves again and to move away from what we have been doing in the past. Until all the participants within the debt exchange program are completely satisfied. I have not heard of what is going to happen to the individuals. Until all the parties are satisfied, we cannot have a successful debt exchange program that we seek to have by February ending. So yes, the banks have accepted, insurance have accepted. There are other participants within that space. It is based on successful negotiation with these participants that one can say that we are successful and we can then present a case to IMF for consideration. But it appears as if there's a gun on us, and at all costs, by February ending, March ending, we need to get this thing through. That posture, yes, might be important, but then it doesn't give a lot of room for good negotiations to be done. Nobody is saying that give everybody the whole year to come to the table. But at least we should not end up destroying ourselves in our attempt to secure just 3 billion, which will not even come as a goal. It will come in tranches. So let's take our time and let's make sure that all the parties are satisfied.
Indeed, myself, I don't know as to what is informing government to issue that timeline by way of securing that deal with the IMF by February or March, all things being equal. But do you think we have that time to engage the various players in securing the deal?
I would say yes and no. Now that the banks, in fact, the banks and the banks in particular are the most important players there. So now that the banks have somehow have bought into the idea, I think that's a big respite for government. Now we need to talk about the individuals. We need to talk about some other stakeholder interest. As for Bank of Ghana, you don't have to talk much about Bank of Ghana because Bank of Ghana, whatever be the case, Bank of Ghana will accept it simply because you cannot owe yourself. In other words, Bank of Ghana is an agent of government. So whatever Bank of Ghana bought in by this instrument, you can say that there's no urgency to repay Bank of Ghana. So Bank of Ghana is out. What we need to do is that we need to give ourselves time. Give ourselves time and then make sure that everybody is satisfied.
And when you say we should give ourselves time, let's look at the duration.
Yes, IMF works with time. It is true. IMF works with time. But IMF also have an interest at stake. So I will not be able to put a time on this and say by so and so time. But you see, we should not end up destroying ourselves in our attempt to get this deal done. It is better we meet everybody halfway and then we go as a group with everybody buying in. It will be difficult, but then at least getting the greater consensus of people down to coerce a group and we get into the program and we don't even get 3 billion from the word go. It has to be in tranches. Yeah. So
all right.
Let's still exercise some patience and let's make sure that everybody is satisfied. But that doesn't mean that we have the whole period to ourselves.
All right.
Let's work within reasonable time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Dr. Benjamin Amwa is a senior finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, speaking to us there. Now,